Take a major step in the 2026-2025 electoral roadmap by conducting elections for the special interest group. The exercise has since drawn a lot of criticism, particularly from the opposition, and the biggest opposition party that we do have in this electoral cycle, that is the National Unity Platform, which has claimed the process was flawed and is now considering petition the Electoral Commission. Of course, this morning we're going to be diving into the unfolding of the roadmap as of the Electoral Commission, understanding where the challenges are and what are the progresses that we're supposed to be seeing on some of the commitments that the Electoral Commission did give us on a smoother electoral process this time around. And so joining us for this conversation from the Electoral Commission, we do have the spokesperson of the Commission, and that is Julius Muchongozi. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Priscilla, and I'm glad to be here on MorningAtNTV.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And of course, Deputy Spokesperson for the National Unity Platform, Alex Fumbiro.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, Priscilla. Humbled to be here this morning.
It's a pleasure to have you.
It's been a long time.
Okay, now let's talk about the reflections that we must, of course, pick lessons from in order to then rearrange for the rest of the roadmap as far as elections for our country are concerned. You get to look at the general assessment of the recently concluded special interest groups elections. In your perspective, as one who's representing the Electoral Commission, how did you find the conduct and, of course, the implementation of this entire process up until the last election cycle that we saw towards the end of last week?
Thank you very much. The elections of committees at the village level for special interest groups, the youth, persons with disabilities, and the elderly and older persons were conducted in 71,227 villages that we have across the country. And the reports we received and we have received from across the country, especially for the first two, for the persons with disabilities and older persons, we generally did not have any incident, and we observed a free, fair process that was generally peaceful. The youth elections, the committees for the youth at village level, again, in the 71,227 villages across the country, they were generally peaceful and conducted according to the law and according to the guidelines of the Electoral Commission. But we did receive unfortunate reports of confrontations and violent confrontations in some sections, in some places across the country, mostly in urban areas and in particular in Kampala. The Commission does not want to see a situation where we have violence in our elections. And this is one of the messages the Commission has been emphasizing from the beginning when we started the implementation of the roadmap, that in our electoral processes, we should not see violence, we should not see confrontations, because an election is not a war. An election is not a do or die affair. And what causes violence in our electoral processes? It is simply people, actors within the electoral process, that refuse to follow the law, that refuse to follow the guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission, that treat an election as a do or die, that treat an election as a matter of life and death, that do not respect each other's choices or processes. And yet, the framers of this 1995 Constitution, which guarantees and provides that all power belongs to the people of Uganda and that they shall exercise the choice of their leadership through free, fair, and transparent elections, did not envisage that when people are involved in a civic process, they should find themselves in a battleground, as if they are in Chisangani or some of these Gaza or these violent places. So, what is the message of the Commission? One, that generally, across the country, the process went very well. But we know that when in one incident you have a confrontation that is violent, all the cameras go to this place. And for that matter, what emerges on the news at Live at 9 or on Kawungezi or on Gatari Konfufu is these slices of confrontation that then paint a picture as though the entire exercise was marred by what slices of pictures and images we have seen. So we want to see a situation where those that conduct themselves very well are saluted, and the Commission salutes all those people that participated in the special interest group elections at the village level to form those committees. And they did so in accordance with the law, and they followed the guidelines, and they respected each other. We salute them. And that is the image that we would like to see across the country. In those places where we saw scenes that do not please anybody, we want to say, one, that those are unfortunate and unacceptable. Number two, that these are incidents we should avoid as we roll out the rest of the program for the implementation of the 2025-2026 general elections.
Okay, so this is to insinuate, Julius, that on the side of the Electoral Commission, you facilitators of this process, things went smoothly for you. Are there not any challenges that you faced, as always, delayed delivery of things that need to be used for the processes, starting late, limited resources or limited number of forces on ground to be able to facilitate these processes?
No, I mean, for these committee elections, village committee elections, which are by lining up, really, there are no major logistical machineries that are required. People show up, there is a register, the registers were there, and people show up, they line up behind the candidate of their choice, or the poster, or the agent, or the symbol. And from our end, in terms of preparation, the Commission was and is prepared even for the subsequent committees that are going to be formed. We have our staff, and we have deployed them, we trained them, they know what they are supposed to do. The real issues that we saw in these special intergroup elections at village level were really those cases that are isolated, I must say. But even when they are isolated, the message is this, that from the Commission's point of view, no area, no village deserves to have an election that turns into a violent confrontation. So we would want to make sure that no village, no voter, no Ugandan is left behind when it comes to having a free and fair process in which they exercise their mandate to choose their leaders. So the preparedness in terms of from the Commission point of view, we are very prepared. We were very prepared, and we are prepared even for the subsequent ones. But we want to call on the actors, the stakeholders. The Commission always emphasizes the fact that a free, fair, transparent electoral process is not just a responsibility of the Electoral Commission alone, because the Commission does not vote. The Commission does not field candidates. The Commission does not police the polling stations. It is the other actors in the process, the candidates themselves, the voters themselves.
Speaking of candidates, we had the privilege of speaking to some young leaders here last week, and one of the grievances they put forward is that having been faithful to, going by the electoral process of making sure that they verify their information in the National Register, making sure that their information is there, they have their cards that do prove that their information is verified in the books, and then they get to the process and they get to register themselves as candidates for especially opposition parties, and it's noted that some of their names are not in the register, or the person that is handling the register is stating that their names don't exist.
You know, the building of the voters registers, both the national voters register, the big one, and the special interest group registers, goes through a process, and has gone through a process over time. Where there was the update period where people who were not on the register registered. And that was going concurrently with the update of the voters register for the special interest groups. Then we had a period for display, where we displayed these registers as required by the law. We displayed, and we asked all Ugandans that are eligible to go and check these registers to make sure that, number one, they themselves are there. Number two, that those that are on those registers and shouldn't be there are flagged for removal. And there was a period of a tribunals at the parish level who would go through all the complaints that were raised during the display period. So by the time we came to the elections of these committees, we had completed the exercise of the process of ensuring that those that must be on the register are there. At that point, really the expectation is that those who come to vote are actually aware that they're on the register. Now, if there are cases where there may have been people who have evidence that when they checked during the display, they were on the registers, and now when they showed up to vote, they were not there. Those are issues that the Commission would be interested in, to examine what exactly happened, or whether it is true that those people, one, were on the register, and now they don't find themselves the register.
Okay. All right, it's to that submission that then we turn to the National Unity Platform, Alex, and I know that you've been able to follow up from the start of the process, especially as the young people were being encouraged to engage in this process right from the start, encouraging young leaders to showcase and show cause and stand. Then at the end of the day, the National Unity Platform leaders especially seemed to face the wrath of the Titan through this election process. What were the concerns that you saw continuously rising through this particular process, and what do you make of the outcomes of the elections of the special interest groups?
First of all, I want to thank those that participated in these processes, however brutal that they were, because very many young people were badly clobbered. Others were cut by pangas. I don't know whether you have seen those scenes or interacted with those young people. Of course not. In what seemed to have been something that would have been very easy to conduct. From the start, we had challenges. First of all, as a party, to organize ourselves for this election. We were attacked by the state, by the military. Our functions were stopped by the security apparatus. We had to wait for a whole month to be cleared to hold our youth conference. After the youth conference had been sanctioned by the Electoral Commission and the security forces, still what happened is that our people were arrested, were beaten in various parts of the country. In Busoga, the organizers, the Swengeres, were tear gassed, colleagues were battered to bleeding, and these are young people. We are trying to lure that a country must have processes of change of power, because many of the generations that exist today have not seen a peaceful transition of power. They have only read the history of the gun barrel. So we have been at the charging of telling young people that no, democratic processes work and actually work efficiently. Unfortunately, the state is saying otherwise to these young people. It is very unfortunate. In Chirombe here, they attacked the state. First of all, the Electoral Commission, you are a toothless barking dog. You're speaking very nicely here, and everybody would have loved to have such an Electoral Commission. But very unfortunately, what is on ground is different. In the Kawempe by-election, where the Electoral Commission has refused to even apply for to go on appeal on record, I was with the commissioner, Dr. His name is escaping my mind, at a polling station with the Secretary General, and the RCC, the Deputy RCC of Masaka, was asking the commissioner of the Electoral Commission to vacate the electoral area. And this is what happened with the youth elections. That's why I said that they are a toothless barking dog. At the electoral centers in various places, first of all, the Electoral Commission was itself aiding and abetting into helping the NRM win these elections. There are places where, first of all, the rules were that elections would start at 9 a.m. There are places where by 6:30 you would reach there and they tell you that the election is finished. This happened across the country because it is what happened. And now, where that electoral person is that dishonest, the person in charge of organizing the election at that polling center is that dishonest, that he has been co-opted by the state to claim that an election has been done by 6:30 a.m. shows how much trouble we are in with the Electoral Commission. There are places where, first of all, we complained, we put a formal complaint to the Electoral Commission, and we had to complain through again to have them write back to us a day towards the election. That means that we have candidates of the National Unity Platform who are denied the opportunity to campaign. In Nachifuma, there is where an NRA candidate was declared, but the NUP candidate had passed on. Now, the law is very clear that where in an electoral process nominated candidates, one of them dies, that electoral process is supposed to be postponed. They did not do that. Now, where such instances are not circumstantial and are consistent, then it does not augur well for the Electoral Commission to be independent. You see, the establishment of the Electoral Commission is to the effect that they should be free, they should hold free, they should organize free, fair, efficient, and professional elections. And I think with clarity, they lack all the above, and yet that is their constitutional obligation as per Article 61. If you complain to the Electoral Commission on several occasions, like I can give you in the preceding, in the 2021 election, we went to the Electoral Commission with our candidate in a bullet vest, but the chairperson of the Electoral Commission connoted that he was not aware because his TV, your department, had not subscribed for anything. Can you imagine? The chairperson of the Electoral Commission was not able to watch NTV Akaongezi or any other special. That is, if it is not a lie, it is impunity. Because you have a whole budget to run free, to organize free, fair, efficient, professional, and non-partisan elections. If you listen...
On that note, Julius, I would like you to respond to some of these allegations that have been tabled by this party.
Alex is making interesting submissions. What I can tell you is that the Commission acts independently in discharging its responsibilities as provided for in the functions in Article 61 of the 1995 Constitution. But the Commission always says it's a referee of a political process, and it has actors in that process. Now, if you have a referee, like we are, and we are mandated to make sure that the process, the game of politics of electing leaders is done efficiently, professionally, and you have actors on the pitch, those are the candidates, for instance, with their supporters, who say, for us, we're not going to follow the rules. That if I miss the ball, at least I will not miss the ball. And then you have the spectators, but this time they're not, they're voters. And the voters, instead of following the law or the rules, they decide when they see somebody going to score, they abuse them, throw all insults. And so essentially the point I'm trying to make is this, that you have an independent electoral commission whose functions are established in the Constitution and whose commitment is to organize free, fair, transparent and professional elections.
All right, so Julius,
we must therefore...
He raised two things
yes.
that we want to pick from his submissions.
Yes.
One is of a polling station where you do have elections being conducted before the official time for conducting these elections.
Let me speak to that.
What is the rule of law when it comes to that, as far as the Electoral Commission is concerned?
So this is what the law says. Everybody in the electoral process, including electoral officials, must follow the law. No one is allowed to break the law in respect of elections. So if there is evidence to the effect that there are places where deliberately, with no reason, just that is reasonable, somebody broke...
What would be considered reasonable?
Because there is...
you
see, for the law, it is the law. If election are supposed to start at a particular time, you can't start them before that. And therefore, it would mean that those individual officers would be out of order. And if there is evidence to that effect, I mean, we all know the recourse to addressing such matters. And one is you petition the commission, and the commission listens. And Mr. Mfumbiro knows that even in the respect of the complaints that were raised before in the nomination process, the commission said it met these people that had complaints, it made decisions and communicated these decisions. Yes, it is true that decisions may have come at a time when some of the processes had passed, but you cannot really...
All the processes near.
You cannot really say that the commission did nothing. The commission did everything that it could do within the time that was available, within the space that was available. But let me conclude by saying...
before you conclude, on that note, does it have to take a complainant to actually bring to light what is happening as far as electoral officers' conduct is concerned in the case that we're talking about, conducting elections before officially designated time?
I don't have that evidence. Okay.
We're just speaking hypothetically.
So hypothetically, I mean, first of all, hypothetically, everybody is supposed to follow the law. That is the principle.
Yeah.
No one is allowed to break the law. And the laws and the guidelines that govern elections in this country are known. We have them. Now, if anybody breaks the law or the regulations that guide elections, they cannot be addressed through a shouting match or a mob justice process. The laws must be the one that will determine the gravity and the extent to which that particular requirement was broken. In this case, we take all this feedback objectively, and these are areas that we must investigate and establish. Is this, even if no one went to court, by the way, Alex, even if no one went to court, when these complaints come, because we have a complaints desk, we established a complaints desk at the Electoral Commission to pick all these complaints that were coming, and we are following up on those complaints, we are investigating those complaints to make sure that, one, we establish the veracity of those complaints, whether they are correct or not, because we know in politics, our politics, you know it, people will allege anything and everything because of the level of interest and passion that has been invested in our electoral processes.
So maybe the case of starting elections earlier than the designated time could be allegations, but what about the case of a candidate dying, and then that means that by rule of law, that election in that particular station should be postponed? I
need to check what the law says. He mentioned it, but you know, master of the law, I would need to check that particular element. But if that is the case and the law says otherwise, definitely then there would be a problem. But again, I need to establish, to be sure that what he has said is actually factual, and that indeed there was an abrogation of the provision in respect of that particular incident. But when evidence is sufficient and is overwhelming, even the commission can take a decision, because Section 50 of the Electoral Commissions Act empowers the commission to take any measures to redress any matter in the entire electoral process should there be evidence to that effect. So please, I request my friend that we should give all the support the Electoral Commission needs from all stakeholders to make sure that it undertakes its constitutional obligation and mandate to organize free, fair, transparent, professional elections.
Right.
We need the support of the political actors, the politicians, the electorate, the civil society, the security agencies. All of those institutions that must play a role must play them according to the law. That way, we will have elections that we are all proud of.
All right.
No one.
We can't speak into the future, but we surely can use the past to show us if the future is going to be any better, especially for the general elections upcoming. To which I turn to Alex here and ask, in terms of security interference in the SIGs, what do you make of how the security conducted itself this time around compared to the previous scenario that we saw in the by-election for Kawempe North?
You see, when the owner of the field begins to blame the indiscipline on the field on other players, then you understand that the referee is not in charge of the game anymore.
That is not correct.
Our complaint is that in this so desired democratic process that we are in and participating in, we are being clobbered, and you are looking on. You are aiding and abetting the dehumanization.
That is not
of
correct.
I will submit.
Okay, please.
Of the citizenry. Why do you qualify to these acts? One, your behavior. I have told you that with the mayhem that was orchestrated on the National Unity platform, visibly and on a candidate you nominated in your own jurisdiction, Nalukola, you have pulled out from appeal. You have accepted the rhetoric of the system that you are an inefficient electoral commission. This is not from me, this is from the NRA. That you are an inefficient electoral commission. We don't have a party called
NRA, but it's not on the register. Which one are you talking about?
I am speaking about those who are in charge using the gun that you cannot supervise.
Please,
so the NRA has taken over the processes, and you are looking on. If you look at the Kawempe by-election, you failed. It was the magnanimity of the National Unity Platform and its candidate that overwhelmed the circus that was being supervised by the Electoral Commission. Members of Parliament were picked from your jurisdiction at an Electoral Commission. Members were displayed for the first time when you are in charge. Members for wars, for a war zone, were displayed at your place of jurisdiction where you are the referee. You did not call those members. You have said that oftenly. But you could not reply back to them. Genome 7, for the third, fourth, fifth time, has publicly stated that the Electoral Commission in the last election held an election that was fraudulent. He has gone on adding numbers from 1 million now to 2.7 million.
This is to state that the National Unity Platform stole his...
Yes. And we haven't heard from you telling General Museveni that he's lying to the nation. That actually the National Unity Platform did not cheat any elections. And you cannot even rebut it here, despite being the PRO, because you have been captured. Now, the intellectual dishonesty in this country is that we do not want to face the truth. We want to call black white. We want to call the truth lies. But you are under capture. And that capture is what we are speaking to bravely. Because the people who are being brutalized, let me tell you, just in a minute, in these youth elections, the RCCs, Namialo, Madina Sereko, and I'm giving names, Mr. Kabanda, a minister, Uhuru, they hired, like in this city, they hired goons that have for a long time been organized to take over this election. And listen to me very carefully.
I'm listening to you.
To take over this election, to topple the Electoral Commission through Afande Damulida's ghetto structure. These are facts. And to that effect, I always speak facts. This ghetto structure moved around polling stations, beating, miming, wielding pangas. It happened in Rubaga, I've told you the vice chairman in Chirombe Zone B is in hospital. Or was taken to hospital. I may not know the days running up today. Because he was beaten by goons that are commanded by the ghetto NRA structure. Now, if you want to face the truth without appeasement, if you want, because I saw the chairperson of the Electoral Commission calling upon Ugandans to participate in elections, even wanting to criminalize those who don't participate. There is an allegation from the sitting head of state saying that you, the Electoral Commission, have held inefficient, because once they say that there was interference in the process, but you are not brave enough to come and rebut that.
Okay.
You are.
So let's have Julius rebut if he can. In terms of security and electoral integrity, where do we draw the line between the maintaining of order and interfering in this democratic process?
You know, I wish I could say more about the matter of Kawempe, but I can't because, as you know, it is subject to court processes. And you know that very well. So I will liberate myself from making reference to particulars and specifics, but I can tell you
you're not part
that
of
you
the
know,
process anymore.
but
you have decided to stay away from the process.
But you know,
I'm not on the substance. I am on your character as the Electoral Commission. But I'm seconding from your national duty, protecting what you organized. You have accepted that you organized the sham election.
But you are aware, Alex, that the EC was jointly sued with NUP, not so?
Yes.
So I will stop it at that. Because I mean, what more should I say at this point? But let me not go into the details. Let me speak
you've left the candidate midway.
Alex, let me respond.
Now, everybody in this country must follow the law. And to be law-abiding demands on all actors, whether you are in the opposition, whether you are in government, whether you are an electoral official, whether you are a voter. We have agencies in this country mandated to enforce law and order, and also to ensure that anybody that breaches provisions of the law relating to elections is handled. In the law, in the Constitution, police is mandated to provide security during elections. And the police determines how it does this, not the EC. And police, I know that you've never seen the Electoral Commission calling on other agencies of security to come and supervise or participate in elections. The matter regarding security during elections is a matter for police. And I wish you had the spokesperson of police here to explain how they determine how much and how to deploy to ensure that there's a peace, security, and law and order. Unless if you want.
So, but you see, Julius, the line we're trying to ask you to draw is not whether a police holds responsibility over the state of security in this electoral process, which by law it does.
Yes.
What we're trying to ascertain from you is that where do you as the Electoral Commission draw the line for these security agencies to interfere directly into the process? You
may be aware, and Alex knows, that in the first incident, now you are taking me to speak about certain elements, but the Electoral Commission summoned and spoke and briefed and called on security, the police, immediately after the first incidents, which you know, to say there are scenes that we see. We need to see better scenes from the field. Okay? So there are conversations that happen. Some of them are in the public domain. Some of them are behind the scenes. Some of them are through good offices. Because ultimately what we want through all these processes is to have a free, fair process. But there are those who think that the only way to get results is by making huge public announcements. there is space for making public announcements. There is space for engagement. We engage with all leaders. We engage with leaders from all political parties, including NUP. Some of them are behind the scenes. They don't get into the public domain because ultimately the purpose is we want to find a solution.
Okay,
we
so
don't want to win and score.
Julius, I know that you have had these engagements with the security.
and the good thing is this.
And so we're asking, from the engagements that you've had with these bodies so far, what is their commitment to actually aiding you and supporting you in having the free and fair elections? Not
only commitments, but even results. Because we know that for the major part of the campaign process in Kawempe, it was peaceful, save for those first two and then the last day. Which means that when engagements happen, you see good results. But let me say this, that the solution to getting a free, fair electoral process is not through lambasting the referee. It is participating and calling on everybody, including those that may be breaking the law, and those who break the law are across the board, that they must follow the law. If all of us followed the law, including law enforcement, including political actors, including candidates and voters and security and the EC, we would indeed have what we must have as provided for in the Constitution.
All right.
And that should be the core for everybody.
We're going to be taking a short break, but when we return, we'll look at the dominance or the continued dominance of the national resistance movement in these particular level of elections and what that implies, especially for the opposition in preparation for the general picture of choosing our leaders democratically in the next electoral cycle that is ongoing 2025-2026. Do stay with us. 2025-2026. Of course, he has made some remarks to which I would like Alex to make reference to, and it's where we're going to really pick it up from. The dominance of the national resistance movement at grassroots level as far as political participation is concerned. They continue to pride in having a very grounded support system right from grassroots levels, which seems to be biting you at the back, especially from reference to the SIG elections that we saw recently.
Wherever the Electoral Commission was fully in charge, I can tell you that we had 95% to our interest victory, even in the SIGs. For us, our challenge is the playing field. It is not the NRM. I have said it often that if we were to eat the NRM, we would eat them as an appetizer, not a special meal. They are too weak to be in the dungeons with us, in the democratic dungeons with us. They have only been they have only been enhanced by the presence of security. So for us, we no longer discuss the NRM, we rather discuss the NRA. And on issues of structural development, yes, they cheated their way out through this poorly organized process. Not to say that we do not understand the challenges of the Electoral Commission. When I say the Electoral Commission has been captured, I speak with it at pain because I want you to be independent. I want you to be in charge of those offices, and then we take you on your own weaknesses, not on weaknesses of being captured by another institution. We are talking about institution. If this country must go forward, then all our institutions must be given opportunity to blossom, grow, and transit as the country grows forward. Not every time having a backdrop on the processes, especially like that, that brings in a new breath of fresh leadership. When somebody speaks about the NRM giving us good roads, of course, I am very surprised that a person at the level of Dr. Tango Doi, with his exposure, he can think that the NRA has worked well on infrastructure with mobility and transport. the last 40 years, they have only managed 6,000 kilometers. And I can tell you, in Kenya here, I've always given you the example, Uhuru, in just 10 years, he did 15,000 kilometers. So I don't know where they would have a yardstick of
this not being about roads, but the roadmap to the elections.
He did speak about the good roads, and the country is not stable.
In that regard, Alex, the opposition mainly has continuously bashed the Electoral Commission and saying that it's not fully in charge of the election process, not just for this one, but even for previous one. And it begs the question, as the National Unity Platform, why do you continue to then participate in the electoral process that you believe is unfair right from the beginning to the end?
When we speak to the weaknesses of the Electoral Commission, it's not in bad faith. I hope Musonguzi, your colleagues and yourself understand me. It is to assist you grow. Because we know that the hand that has captured the judiciary, the hand that has captured the legislature, the hand that has captured democracy is the one that is capturing the Electoral Commission. That we know. We are speaking to the bad habit of the person capturing the country, and also calling out the Electoral Commission to come out and speak the truth, such that people do not give you the burden. Why we participate is because we believe in processes. We are a democrat. We are Democrats. And the Electoral Commission will be there even after M7 to organize elections after M7 is gone, after NUP is gone. And elections are a constitutional process. Whether there is a thief stealing elections, whether there is what, but these are constitutional processes that we must take part of.
What's the National Unity Platform's next step? I understand that you are presenting some petitions in this regard.
I think our secretariat has taken on, as usual, petitioning the Electoral Commission for a middle ground on these processes, because this is a roadmap to the national election. And once we get it from the wrong footnote at the beginning ab initio, then at the tail end it is definitely going to be muddy. And we do not want to be in a country that will descend into turmoil simply because we do not do the right thing. The reason we are participating in elections is because we do not want to run to the sound of where people have pushed us, of holding guns and other methodologies. We believe this country desires an electoral process, a free and fair, efficient process that will give us a breath.
Thank you, Alex. Alex Waisam-Fumbira for the National Unity Platform. And now, as we close with you, Julius, in terms of the Electoral Commission, now that we do have the SIGs behind us, what next as far as the roadmap is concerned?
Actually, the SIGs, Special Interest Groups elections, are not behind us. Because what is going to happen next week, is that we're going to have nominations for candidates that are going to participate in parish level committees, to form parish level committees. Because those who were elected to the village committees are going to form the electorate or the council that will elect the next level of committees. From the parish, we'll then elect committees for the sub-county, we'll then elect committees for the district, and then continue up to the national level. So we are still in a series of electoral processes and elections for the special interest groups up to the end of August. So we want to call upon all the stakeholders, political parties, to take interest now in the nominations for parish level candidates that are going to happen on the 26th and 27th of this month. And then subsequently there will be elections for those committees as we move forward. And these special interest group elections are very, very significant because they are at the national level. They start from the grassroots level. If you have not participated at the village level, you can't participate at the parish level. So those who participated and were elected at the village are the ones who are going to continue to form the committees and the councils that will elect subsequent processes, except for just a few cases. But let me say, as I conclude, that we need all to conduct ourselves in a manner that enables this country, Uganda, which we all share, to continue thriving, to continue progressing, to continue developing, and to continue being united and peaceful. Because at the end of the day, all of us will leave these stages. But there is one thing that will remain, this country. We found it, we are in it, we'll leave it. But how do we leave it? That's why I am happy that Alex speaks about strengthening institutions and supporting them to do what they are supposed to do.
Okay.
And that is what the Commission is committed to doing.
And we hope that out of this conversation, Julius,
Yes.
you are able as the Electoral Commission to go back and, you know, make sure that you just tighten up on some of those gaps that have presented themselves in these late stages so far to be able to conduct a better election.
Actually, that is what happens, Priscilla, because
we're out of time, so we'll have the defense in
I just
the next
wanted to
time
say,
we do host you. Thank you so much for having been a part of this discussion. I guess the bigger question that we must see answered out of all of these discussions is how do we avert electoral violence from our electoral processes as the Republic of Uganda? That's a question we've yet to find answers to. That brings us to the end of Morning at NTV. Thank you so much on behalf of Chris Igenya and myself, Priscilla, Regina, Naluoga, adios and have a good day. Coming up next is Stella Nante with Masuza Mtia.